This is The Toss-Up, where an expert-line panel dissects the hottest stories within the world of sports. From some of the nation's strongest college programs right here in Bloomington to the games and moments that capture the world's attention, it's all right here on The Toss-Up. Shonda Stanton is entering her second season as head coach for the Indiana softball team and is perhaps ahead of schedule in the long-term plan. While the Hoosiers didn't quite reach the 500 mark last season, their incredible start to conference play marked a major milestone for Stanton and her Hoosiers. A 17-6 record that included a sweep over ranked Ohio State early in March was good for third place in the Big Ten. And with a lot of production returning, the Hoosiers will be gunning for another top-tier finish in the conference this season. Hi, everybody. My name is Michael Dugan. Joining me on the panel this week, we have Phil Steinmetz, Will Trubshaw, and Jordan Gould, the latter two, right here for IUS TV Sports and an IDS reporter. Gentlemen, Jordan, I'll start with you. Last year, the team exceeded expectations in conference play, but what should the expectations be for this season? Yeah,
I mean, I think that this team is expected to do as well. I mean, I think that they could finish anywhere from second to maybe 7th or 8th in the Big Ten Conference this year. And you look at the teams ahead of them in the Big Ten, where you got Michigan and Minnesota both in the preseason top 25 poll. They will be tough opponents, but you look at the success you had. You mentioned Ohio State, that sweep last year. They went 5-1 against Ohio State and Michigan combined last year. Both teams, of course, pretty good last year. Michigan will be contending again. And yeah, I like this Indiana squad to compete this year and maybe finish just as good, if not better, this coming season.
Yeah, you know, I'd have to agree with that. I can't see the Hoosiers finishing much worse than the third place that they achieved last year. You know, this really, for the most part, it's a team that is coming back intact. They didn't lose a whole lot of players to graduation last year. They've brought in some more transfers and a pretty solid freshman class as well. So I think this is a team that they showed what they can do last year, especially after they got used to Coach Stanton's coaching style and you know the way she wants them to play the game. And I think we're just going to see a little more of the same this year. So I think third place finish is my prediction again.
And I kind of agree with that in that part. IU does have a lot of returning production from last season, but also a big name that they'll miss is Rebecca Blitz, who was lead off for all 4 seasons. But I think Gabby Jenkins will step up in that spot. But like with me, most of their games, like most tough opponents against Ohio State, Michigan, and Wisconsin are all on the road this season. So I think, so right now I have them about slotted 4th place, but like that's still good for a bye in that Big Ten tournament.
Certainly. And they're returning, you mentioned it, they're returning most of their production at the plate from last season. So who can we expect to see 1 or 2 names that will be leaders at the plate this upcoming season?
I think it starts with Gabby Jenkins and Maddie Westmoreland. Gabby Jenkins had a .369 batting average last season, and then Maddie Westmoreland led the team with 10 home runs, and she was also first team all Big Ten as a freshman. So I think with her in the middle of the lineup, and then you also have Katie Lacefield, who was in the 9th spot last season, and she's going to move up into about the 2 or 3rd spot this season. So I think those 3 will be really the names to watch in the lineup season.
Yeah, I think, like Philip said there, that's going to be the heart of your lineup is those guys, especially Gabby Jenkins. She's going to take over that role for Rebecca Blitz, being the leadoff hitter. Someone else I think, though, that could be a big contributor to the offense this year is Michaela Ferrari, someone we haven't mentioned yet. She was 3rd on the team last year, and still she had 19. I think she's going to have a better opportunity this year to get on base more consistently. She'll be out in the field more consistently. I wouldn't be surprised to see her contributing to the offense because, again, this offense is really predicated on running the bases and going that extra 60 feet. I think Michaela Ferrari is going to play a big part in that.
Yeah, this Indiana squad returned 7 of 9 starters from last season in their lineup, and 5 of the 6 best batting averages are still on the team this year. The only one was departing senior Rebecca Blitz, like you guys mentioned earlier. But yeah, I like what Gabby Jenkins and Maddie Westmoreland, I mean, I think that duo will be back this year in full force. But then you look at the pitching side of things, right? You got Tara Traynor, who we haven't gotten into yet, but 5 of the team's 56 games last year, she had 35 decisions. I mean, she was the absolute workhorse last year for this Hoosier team, with over almost 200 innings and just a ton of strikeouts. She's 4th in program history right now in strikeouts. So you know what you're going to get out of her.
Yeah, so piggybacking off of that, I'm assuming you guys are all going to pick the same person to lead for the pitching staff. But what does this person exactly, kind of tease the answer here a little bit, who is going to lead this pitching staff group, and what can they bring to the table in terms of leadership? Because, like you said, they are bringing back a lot of production there as well, not just at the plate. Yeah,
I mean, I think it's going to be Tara Traynor. I mean, she led here with innings last year. She should expect it to again this year. But you also got Emily Gooden there, who threw over 100 innings herself last year. But I like what Tara Traynor said. We talked to her earlier this week, Will and I did at the media day, and she said that she worked this offseason on her curveball. Now she's added an extra pitch to that arsenal of hers. She's got a dynamite fastball, but to add that curveball, I think it'll improve her strikeout ratio, and yeah, she'll be definitely a player that this team will lean on.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think the key is Tara Traynor. Again, she's the undisputed ace. She's got 42 career wins. She's going to look to add to that total, and I think it's very likely that she will this season. But again, too, you've got Emily Gooden, another person Coach Stanton mentioned at media availability, actually Josie Wood, the redshirt junior. She is primed to have a good season, and I think the Hoosiers are going to need that because they're going to need some pitching depth. Because while you have Traynor, I think especially if they want to really improve and get to the top of the Big Ten and do well in the Big Ten tournament, they're going to need a deep pitching staff, and you can get that with Josie Wood, plus some of the freshman pitchers they've had come in.
Yeah, I think also kind of with that, I think the pitching kind of struggled in the non-conference play last season, and that's when in conference play, Tara Traynor and Emily Gooden really set up their game. Like Tara Traynor was 2nd in the Big Ten in strikeouts that season, and Tara Traynor and Emily Gooden were 3rd and 4th in total ERA for Big Ten games. So I think with that also, Emily Gooden's going to be relied on a lot more than she was last season, and considering last season she was kind of used as the closer at times. But I think also Josie Woods could be in that role as more as a closer this season, as they rely more on Tara Traynor and Emily Gooden to shoulder the load.
All right, we're going to cut to break here real quick, but coming up after the break, we're going to keep going with our discussion on IU softball, and we're going to do our lightning round, so stick with us. Welcome back to the Toss-Up. I'm joined by Phil Steinmetz, Will Trubshaw, and Jordan Gold. We're talking IU softball. Jordan, I'll kick it to you here. How does their non-conference schedule look? Because last year it was tough, and this year there are some big names on there as well. Yeah, they start out down in Florida, the Boca Raton, this weekend with Virginia, which was a ACC team that really struggled last year, 3-21 in conference play. And yeah, but Virginia does pick up a transfer from Boston College who really led the team. Really had a good shutout against Florida State, which is the top team in the nation. So they will be a challenge, but it will be a competitive game. And they also got teams like Georgia, the number 6 team in the preseason poll, which is coming back with Alyssa DiCarlo, which is a preseason player of the year at shortstop there. She hit 400 last year. So it'll be definitely a challenge for them again in that one. And then they also got LSU later in the year, another SEC opponent. The SEC is really good at softball. So definitely, I think that Indiana will get a nice challenge here. There's definitely some winnable games. You also got Bethune-Cookman, FAU, a handful of other teams, but a good mix of challenge and winnable games for this team. And you hope that they can win some of these, especially after that dismal 4-21 start they had last year.
Yeah, piggybacking off that, really outside of the Georgia and the LSU matchups, the Hoosiers will have USF on the schedule. They're another team that's received votes in the preseason polls and whatnot. There's not a whole lot of matchups that I don't see favoring the Hoosiers. I think the Hoosiers, their out-of-conference schedule just to start the year here is going to be a lot softer than last year. Like Jordan said, that really difficult 4-19 start the Hoosiers got off to last season. I really don't see that happening again. I think they're going to have a nice cushion to go into going into Big Ten play. And I think that'll be a good confidence booster too, because it's hard to come back from that.
Yeah, I think also with that, IU also has Northwestern in the non-conference slate as part of the Hoosier Classic, and then they also still have to go to Louisville, kind of in the middle of conference play as well. So I think this non-conference schedule is a lot easier than it was last season, and especially considering their toughest match non-conference play is going to be this Sunday in the final game of the weekend against number 6 Georgia.
Now, what about the conference portion of the schedule? How's the Big Ten slated to look this year?
Well, I think right now Michigan is obviously the favorite of the conference by far. And then IU has, like I said, they have all 3 of their toughest opponents on the road against Michigan, Ohio State, and Wisconsin. So if IU is able to steal a couple games here and there, considering they probably won't be favored in any of those 3 matchups, if they can win 1 game here, 1 game there, considering Ohio State's probably going to be out for a revenge after that sweep in the beginning of Big Ten play last season, I think IU should be able to compete pretty well if they're able to steal a couple games on the road.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. Last year, the Hoosiers had 5 sweeps in conference. I feel like it's pretty unlikely you're going to have those numbers again, but I still think they're going to fare very well in conference. Like you mentioned, we got Northwestern early on at the Hoosier Classic, and then from there they'll be hitting the road. They've got a lot of difficult matchups on the road. I think they'll be able to win a couple of those series on the roads, but it will be difficult. But yeah, of the 6 teams currently either ranked or receiving votes from the Big Ten, the Hoosiers not one of them. But I think they'll be able to change that. I think they still stack up pretty well. Just again, they didn't lose that much in terms of talent and their offensive lineup last year. So I think they'll still be able to compete pretty well in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and 5 Big Ten sweeps last year was impressive. And I think a big part of that reason of why they had some success in the conference play is especially after they got off to that bad start, Coach Stanton just kind of gathered the troops up and said, look, guys, I mean, we got to take this a game-by-game approach, right? Especially when you start 4-21. You've got to climb your way back up to the 500 mark. And think about it. I mean, they went 22-9 over the last 31 games, and they still finished 4 games below 500. So it took them a while to get to that point. But just to put themselves back in the conversation where they had just kind of went on a tear at the end of the year, especially in conference play, 17-6, I think you got to give a lot of credit to Coach Stanton, and I think that they very well could have success again in the Big Ten this year, specifically against maybe Michigan and Minnesota, the 1-2 in this conference.
All right, it's time for the lightning round. I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and you have to keep each question at 10 seconds or less. Rules are pretty simple. Jordan, you start. Who is going to be the MVP of this team?
Yeah, I got Maddie Westmoreland. She had 52 RBIs last year, 2nd in program history. It took her 18 games to get to her first home run last year. It won't take her that many this year.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Tara Trainer, undisputed ace, put up monster numbers last year. She's going to do it again. She's going to show out for her senior year.
And then I'm actually going to go with Emily Gooden, considering she's going to really have to be relied on more this season to really relieve Tara Trainer at times.
Who's going to be the team's top breakout player?
I'm going to say Katie Lacefield because she is going to be inserted further into the lineup, considering she did come up clutch in some moments in the 9th spot last season.
I'm going to go kind of off the beaten path with this one. I think the breakout player is going to be Bella Norton. She's the catcher for this team. She's had 2 really good years behind the plate defensively as a catcher. But offensively, the bat hasn't been there quite yet. Coach Stanton seems really high on the work she's been doing in this offseason. I think Bella Norton's going to have that breakout season. She's going to be a key cog in this offense. Yeah,
Coach Stanton was really high on Bella Norton. I'm going to go with her as a breakout, too. With her first 2 years here, really kind of struggling at the Mendoza line, the 200 batting average. But her defense is good. She's been really putting in the extra work this offseason and definitely put in some extra time. And I think that if she can get that average up, if she can improve her hitting ability, I think that she'll definitely give IU a good chance. And she's done it well with the glove, and we've seen what she can do.
Now, where will this team finish in terms of the Big Ten? Will they repeat that top 3 finish, or will it be a little bit on the outside of that?
I would say top 5 is realistic. Anything above that I think would be great. And Shauna Stanton is definitely expecting good things, especially after last year, first year here, came over from Marshall. And she's bringing over Grayson Radcliffe, who we haven't mentioned yet, the shortstop transfer, and she looks to start there this weekend. But, yeah, I think a top 5 finish is good, and anything better than that is great.
I'm sticking with my guns. I think it's going to be another 3rd place finish for the Hoosiers. If they do even better, I certainly think it's in the cards. They've shown they can be competitive with Coach Stanton and the Big Ten, but I think 3rd place is where they're going to stick.
And then I think Michigan's going to kind of run away with the conference, considering their pitching staff is one of the best in the country. But I have IU as started at number 4, but I think they can really compete for even number 3 or number 2 in the conference.
All right, before we get out of here, all of you have to pick one word to describe, predict, whatever you want this upcoming IU softball season. Jordan, what is your one word for last word?
I'm going to go motivated, because I think that this team has definitely something to prove, especially after playing so well last year, and they got the Big Ten championship tournament here for the first time in program history at Andy Moore Field this year. We'll see if they'll show out.
I'm going to have to go with a unit. You know, this is a group that they've really gotten to know each other better this past offseason, really learning, coming together in the Coach Stanton style, and I think it is one cohesive unit. They're going to go out and they're going to play as one big team, and they're really going to show out again this year in the Big Ten. I think big things are in store.
And then I'm going to say surprise, considering no one had, like, IU's not ranked or even receiving votes as some of the other Big Ten teams are, and I think like they will actually crack the top 25 this season.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for joining me. It's been a pleasure. But that does it for the show this week. Be sure to continue the discussion on our Twitter page at IUSTV Sports and on Facebook at IUSTV Sports. You can always give any suggestions for the show and ask any questions that you may have. Toss it up. Find out if we'll catch it. We'll see you next time.